Show.
Fueled by Fleetway Market.
Fuel up your car and cooler at Fleetway this football season.
Let's go.
Oh, man. What's next? Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan?
Oh.
I mean, we've had Jackson Dart mania. Sean Payton retiring. You got the transfer portal with Lane Train and the Pirate. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens snubbed once again from the Hall of Fame voters. How many of those voting privileges should be revoked?
How many of those voters are not on pacemakers?
Wow. Shots fired.
I'm just asking the questions people should be asking.
Oh, man. Oh. Who's more prickly? The Washington, D.C. press that covers the president or Major League Baseball Hall of Fame voters?
Yikes.
Who are more elitist, pricklies, and self-righteous? Please, let's get a poll going. On the Ag Up Equipment text line, 601-885-3776, brought to you by your next John Deere tractor. It was Mississippi Ag. Name change. Game changer. Ag Up Equipment, and that's where you go to get your John Deere tractor to manage your land. John Deere, America's tractor, agup.com, Ag Up Equipment. Steve Robertson in a few minutes. All right, Blake, what's the biggest story for you right now? I mean, we've got stuff for days. It's wonderful.
The biggest story to me in terms of what's actually happening is Sean Payton, because the Dart Caleb Williams things is like we're waiting for that to happen. We already know what's happened with Sean Payton, and to me, this is one of those moments, kind of like Mississippi State football was when Dan Mullen left, where this is a pivotal organizational decision moment where you can go one of two directions. And you either get better or you get worse. And New Orleans, we talked about the stats. Sean Payton made 9 trips to the playoffs. They had 5 total trips in the franchise history before he got there. He won 9 games in the playoffs. They had 1 win before he got there.
Hold on. From 1967 to 2005, the New Orleans Saints had 1 playoff win.
1-5. Correct.
Think about how bad that is.
That's awful. Again, it's what we talked about.
It was a franchise that was absolutely and totally irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
And Sean and Mickey Loomis and Drew Brees made this franchise awesome.
Yep.
Buzz, top 10 franchise at times, top 5 franchise the last 15 years. Yeah, again, we talked about their impact on the city, the economy.
You could never measure it.
Can't.
You could never measure
you can't.
it. So let me ask you this question before we go to
Sean
Steve.
did it more than Drew, but Sean bebopping around town.
Correct.
Right? There was just a buzz and a celebrity flavor, and then more chefs, world-class chefs. It all kind of happened at the same time post-Katrina.
Well, you need it.
You had this they were already, obviously, it was a really good food city, right? But you had a culinary renaissance and a culinary boom along with Sean and Drew. It was the perfect storm.
Yeah, and having a coach that did have some celebrity to him might have been exactly what New Orleans needed at the time, rather than the quiet, unimposing guy.
He is full of charisma.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this question before we go. So, including New Orleans, there are now 9 openings in the NFL.
Okay.
None have been filled officially yet. You have the Las Vegas Raiders, Jacksonville Jaguars, Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears, Denver Broncos, Miami Dolphins, New York Giants, Houston Texans, New Orleans Saints. Which one does Bo Bounds want if I gave you any choice of those jobs? Knowing everything you know right now, given all those situations, some of those have quarterbacks you can win with, some don't.
Yeah.
Some have rosters that are built a little bit better than others, some don't. Some are franchises that have historically had winning success. Some have never had success. Which of those, Raiders, Jags, Vikings, Bears, Broncos, Dolphins, Giants, Texans, Saints. Which one do you want?
Yeah, I was about to say Las Vegas or Denver, but Mahomes is there.
And
Denver's won my whole life.
And Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Justin's a great young talent.
You're starting off third best QB.
I'm leaning towards Miami if they'll allow me to move off of Tua.
You know who you haven't
But their whole deal was they wanted more buy-in, I think, from Brian Flores and that staff for Tua. Steve, what's his name? Steve, whatever the owner is down there, has fallen in. I guess again, owners like to get enamored with first-round QBs.
Yep.
Not really anything else, but first-round QBs. They want more Tua is what he is. Okay?
Agreed.
But now if you had Sean Payton, you can get more. I mean, you got to land on like Dayball,
but the ceiling,
Sean Payton, or maybe Eric Bieniemy. I mean, somebody who's really good on offense that can really elevate to just one more slight step. Mm-hmm. So I'll go with. I got the Bills, and that it doesn't matter in the NFL.
You know who you haven't said that I'm shocked by?
Vikings?
No, the Bears. You've got young Justin Fields. You've got a roster that has some potential, and potentially you're walking into a division with no Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and Jared Goff.
No, you're right.
Give me that all day.
Chicago's been so bad. But Blake, they've never played good offense in the history of their franchise, even though they've been able to win a Super Bowl, play for another
Neither
one.
had the Saints. So hire the right guy, you can change that.
That's true. All right. I don't really want to live in Chicago, but I guess for $9 million a year, I will. Yeah. I was thinking Miami. I know, isn't that terrible? I'm just thinking about weather. Las Vegas. Even Denver is better, than that brutal, whatever that Midwest.
Did you know Denver has sun 300-plus days of the year?
See,
it's the sunniest city in the world. Isn't that amazing?
But Mahomesy is there. You're right. As far as path of least resistance, I think you go Chicago. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone ESPN, is brought to you by the Ram Trucks, pre-owned and new, Jeep Grand Cherokees, and any pre-owned and new SUV or truck at Mac Hike in Flowood. Visit MacHikeFlowood.com. They're loaded up with vehicles. Not a lot of dealerships are, unfortunately. But Mac Hike in Flowood, they are. Trucks, SUVs, MacHikeFlowood.com. We welcome in Steve Robertson, GenesPage.com, the Boneyard Podcast. All right, Steve, walk us through what is the latest now that Chad Bumpus and Mike Leach, for whatever reason, couldn't get on the same page on the inside wide receivers position. It looks like it's Drew Hollingshead?
Yeah, I would say that's probably the direction things are going to go is Drew. And it's interesting, Bo, about a week ago, it really felt like and seemed like this thing was going to work out with Chad Bumpus. There were multiple conversations with Chad, even an interview, and then the narrative kind of changed a little bit. It was like there was some discussion. He was kind of felt out. Well, how would he feel about coaching, running backs at Mississippi State? And then things kind of fell apart from there. It didn't really advance. There was never I guess you could say, a formal offer. But a lot of that semantics. I really believe if Chad had been agreeable, they probably find a way to work that out. But the reality of it is Chad's a very accomplished wide receiver. He's a young and upcoming wide receiver coach that, just coached in the Rose Bowl, And so I think at this point, at this juncture in his career, he can, he probably can make some decisions that he feels that are just ideally best for him. And that may not necessarily align with Mississippi State, but there's no hard feelings there. But I know there's a lot of disappointed Bulldogs that were excited about the possibility of Bumpus coming home.
Yeah. Which, to me, there's not a lot of excitement around Hollingshead. He may do a super job, but this is any fan base. When you think you're getting a player who was pretty darn accomplished and well-liked and was part of winning teams, and you don't, and then you get a guy who's an offensive analyst that nobody pays attention to, whether he's worthy or not, do you agree there's not a lot of juice in this hire?
Yeah, it's true. And to be fair, too, I mean, if this goes the way that it now looks it's going to go, that Hollingshead is promoted from within. I mean, Drew doesn't hire himself, and I've read some things out there, and like people are already having this negative reaction. I mean, Drew is a guy that has been with Mike Leach, has shown some loyalty. And one of the things that I was told is that, when he arrived at Mississippi State, he followed, Leach from Washington State, and that, Mike had his eye on him as a potential assistant coach on the field in the not so distant future. And so I think in the end, you get down and you find out who's going to leave. We have this crazy season. State ultimately only has one assistant coach leave, but, had there been a second opening, maybe you find a way to get both of those guys on the field. But, the reality of it is Mike Leach is getting paid over $5 million a year to win football games, and he's got to hire and promote the people that he feels can help him do that the best. And this maybe just wasn't the time, for Chad. And, I've spoken to Chad, and, Chad loves Mississippi State, and at some point would love to be able to come back home, but apparently this just wasn't the time.
How concerned should MSU fans be the fact that Drew Hollingshead, I mean, he was put on the road a few weeks ago, but up until then has never recruited in the Sun Belt or in the, hellfire and brimstone of the SEC?
Yeah, it's a reasonable concern, no matter who you bring in. And, we've seen even with these coaches that have come in, from the Power Five, I remember when Dan Mullen got here, Dan was like, oh, yeah, I've recruited bitter rivalries before, and I laughed, and it's even funnier in hindsight. He was trying to explain to me how serious it was between BYU and Utah, how rabid that rivalry was. And I'm just like, Dan, I don't think your point of reference is what you think it is. It's a much different deal here between State and Ole Miss. It always has been. It always will be. And so, yeah, it's difficult to kind of cut your college recruiting teeth in the SEC and also, too, in a state where the rivalry is especially contentious.
Are you expecting any other shakeups on the staff at MSU?
Yeah, we could see a realignment of some coaching responsibilities. I think they might do some things with special teams, and that's probably needed. It's just one of those deals too, where Mike's got to figure that out. It's one of those deals where he's got to figure out where the staff perhaps was deficient and then take steps to correct it. So I think you could see some reshuffling of some responsibilities, and I don't know when we'll find that out for sure, perhaps in the next few days. But, certainly once you get into spring practice, all that's going to be settled. And, the on the road recruiting efforts, end this week. And so then everybody comes back and, starts meeting with their players and things like that. And so, at the end of the day, I think we all know that, special teams 2 years ago, pretty doggone good. Last year, dreadful. So you've got to do some things to probably shake that up. If that means a division of responsibilities, if that means you make somebody else a special teams coordinator, that's just, that's a decision Michael Leach has to make.
How surprised were you that Teddy Knox, wide receiver out of Houston, Texas, decided to hit the transfer portal?
Yeah, I'm surprised and disappointed. If he had left, shortly after the coaching change, I could have understood. I know that he and Mason Smith were pretty closely aligned, and Mason was the guy that worked off the field at Mississippi State. Did a really good job as a recruiting analyst. And really the reason Mississippi State was in it for Teddy Knox is because of Mason's relationship. And so if he had elected maybe to transfer to LSU shortly after the shakeup, it would have made a lot of sense. But now that you've got a year in and you've come in here and you've played a little bit, you've kind of learned the system, surprised and a little disappointed. But, he is a fantastic young man and very, very talented. And, I'm hearing he's going to stay closer to home, and some are saying it probably won't be LSU. I don't know that I believe that, but but the reality of it is he's left, and there've been a lot of guys that have left that haven't had a lot of production, and you kind of understand that too because you only get a short time in life to play sports, and so you got to get on the field somewhere, even if that means dropping down a level. But Teddy Knox certainly not that player. Teddy's the guy that was rated 4 stars for a reason, and I think he's going to have a great college career. And unfortunately, it's not going to be at Mississippi State.
Did they do enough in the portal to combat losing Makai Polk, Malik Heath, and what Teddy Knox could have been?
Well, you certainly hope so. You go out and you get Justin Robinson, and that's a guy that was highly recruited and highly regarded. And, comes from a great program at the University of Georgia, but he's the guy that's had some injuries here the last couple of years, and you hope that's not a chronic situation, even though those injuries are not necessarily related. I mean, he had a hamstring injury this year. That's going to happen to a lot of athletes, and the year before, I think he had a foot ailment and then potentially a shoulder injury, and so is this the guy that's going to be injury prone? We don't know, but this is the guy obviously that brings a skill set that I don't think Mississippi State has, and then you go out and get Jordan Mosley, who was a guy that was committed to Tennessee much of the process. And then, people forget this time last year, things in Knoxville were a complete mess. I mean, it was an absolute disaster up there. And so he elected to back off that commitment to Tennessee, goes with Northwestern, I believe, which may have been kind of the last man standing from the Power 5 offer sheet, and gets up there and just, would really like to come back closer to home. He's a Mobile, Alabama native, and so now he's back in the SEC. And so, yeah, you've gone out and got
in 2022,
yeah.
or is
yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest with you, I think it may actually be a guy that's already on campus. I think Antonio Harmon is a guy that's going to make some plays. I think Jacoby Moore is a guy that's going to make some plays. And Jacoby was kind of late getting here. He was kind of a late enrollment guy. And Antonio, once you see him, people that haven't seen him maybe in 6 months or a year are going to be amazed at how he's developed physically.
What about Ra-Ra?
Yeah, Ra-Ra's the guy I think makes the plays down the field, more outside the numbers and things like that. But, Ra-Ra's the guy, too, that, and gives Steve Spurrier Jr. a lot of credit. And I kind of joke with people, some of my friends, and I said, I call you old Snake Eyes Spurrier because he's always out here recruiting like a ninja. It's like you never truly know what's going on. He tweets out those eyes like, hey, watch this, and he's got another 4-star commitment. And he goes and gets Ra-Ra Thomas and Simeon Price from South Carolina late last year, and nobody even really knew that they were potential targets. And so Steve knows what he's doing. He knows how to manage that group well, and he knows how to develop players. And if Mekhi Polk gets drafted, and I think he probably will late. I don't think that he's a guy that'll go in the first 2 days, but Mekhi Polk is a guy that was underutilized at Cal, comes to Mississippi State to school record, and now he's got the opportunity to go out there and potentially make a living playing football. And I think there's a debt of gratitude owed to Steve Spurrier, not just for going and getting him, but developing him and turning him into a great player. And I think when you have the kind of confidence in Steve Spurrier, he will have another Mekhi Polk. He will develop another guy. He'll recruit another guy. So I think that's probably the one guy on staff you probably worry the least about.
What Steve Robertson, 247 Sports on the Out of Bounds show and the Corona Premier guest line. What about what are they doing in recruiting this weekend and all the way up until, I guess, next Wednesday?
Yeah, we're at the stretch run, right? I mean, and there's only a handful of spots left to work with. Now that Massimo Biscardi, the kicker from Coastal Carolina, is in and signed and enrolled, that takes away one of your final spots. You really only have 3 spots left to work with out of a potential 31 due to the NCAA waiver this year on the 25 annual limit. State used one of their spots to sign Jameer Calvin back during fall camp. That's why you don't have the full 32, because it's 25 plus 7 if you have room under the 85. But, yeah, you're going to have a handful of guys visit this weekend. You got 2 commitments, R.J. Moss and Jabay Gilmore, that have not officially visited. They'll take their visit this weekend. And then Jalen Farmer is an offensive line prospect. It's been committed to Florida, but after the coaching change, he elected not to sign in December. Recently took an official visit to Auburn, and he's expected on Mississippi State campus this weekend. That's a guy right now. Honestly, I think he's probably the only high school offensive lineman out there right now with the committable offer from Mississippi State. And going to be still an uphill battle, but you get him on campus and you never know. And there's still some talk out there about, a safety or two. And if they're not going to reach, though, if you don't get what you want next week, you save a grant or two, for the post-spring practice portal activity. And so, that's the thing about recruiting. Used to we had one day and it was all over. Well, now you got December signing period. You got the crazy transfer season. You got the traditional National Signing Day. Now it's going to go all into spring and summer. We need to have some regulation, I think, to kind of limit some of this. And because you're basically recruiting to sign players every single day. It's crazy.
Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Steve Robertson joining us on the Bucked Up Energy Drinks guest line. All right, Steve, we appreciate it. We'll catch up again soon. Thanks, man.
Yes.
All right, so Drew Hollingshead.
Yikes.
And he may be fantastic, but the bottom line is when people know a name, former player who was good, who's already in Power 5, who's understands the state of Mississippi but had some success as an assistant coach, it's just going to be an automatic letdown, fair or unfair.
Since you already had
Because you know that, I mean, Chad Bumpus is a known name.
Yep.
You had been so bad at wide receiver forever. He comes in. Dan Mullen made him, along with Chad's skill set, highly productive. And that's with, can you imagine if Bump would have had Dak or vice versa? But, I mean, this is before Dan could really get it up and running. I mean, Dan made Chris Relf as good, I mean, into a solid passing college QB, which is remarkable in of itself. And can you imagine if Bump would have played with Will Rogers or Dak Prescott? I mean, he already had a productive career, but if you want to throw another, spread over 4 years, another 50 to 70 catches, that is a lot of opportunities. Put your hands on the football, and make a play.
You already had Hollingshead on staff. This was a bad mistake by Mike Leach. He should have brought Bumpus in on the field, left Hollingshead off the field one more season, and brought him up next year when they have another staff change.
Yeah.
This was a mistake. It was a brutal mistake by Mike Leach, and I think Mississippi State will pay the price for it.
Well, you needed more. You needed more recruiting juice. All this X's and O's talk is just simply not a sell that's going to go here. It could sell somewhere else. And again, Hollingshead is probably an excellent coach and so on. But you needed some recruiting juice. Everybody's up in their game, including schools that you don't think about like Missouri and Kentucky. You've always had a school in the state that has out-recruited you in Ole Miss. And you see what Sam Pittman and Arkansas are doing,
Hawks,
they are
baby.
not slowing down. They got their name, image, likeness fund up and running, I guess, quicker than you. And so, you're kind of in this space where, and you don't really have an heir apparent to Tony Hughes who's getting up there in age. And Tony may want to go to the house and go to a farm or the beach and hang out. He's got plenty of money and 35 years in with the state of Mississippi or something. So I think Chad Bumpus would have been a great person to bring in and coach learn under Tony Hughes, right? Whether it was 6 months or a year or whatever. And so you're not going to have that option. But we'll see how it looks. And then we'll see what happens with Dart Mania today. Jackson Dart to Ole Miss. Back to Southern Cal. Looks like Oklahoma's moved on. I don't know. If Caleb Williams goes to Wisconsin, does that take Jackson Dart out of the Ole Miss kind of lean and back to Southern Cal? We'll see. Hey, don't forget to hit Apple Podcast and search the Out of Bounds Show. Apple Podcast, search the Out of Bounds Show. Have a great Wings Wednesday. See you tomorrow.